As someone who grew up on Jackass and watching Steve-O, this is my favorite clip. You have to watch it.
My relationship with God, my number one priority, period. That's just where I'm at. And then I had the audacity when I put that episode out to...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
In that conversation about how important my relationship with God is, I had the audacity to cut to an ad read for gambling.
The reason I love this clip so much is because it reminded me of a friend of mine. When she became a Christian, she was having an affair with a married man and pregnant with his baby. Things were messy. And so she was not a believer before, never had any history of walking with Jesus. And she called me one day and she's like, I'm really convicted about something. And I'm thinking, oh, I know what that is. Okay, all right, let's go. I've been practicing. Let's talk about this. And she said, I'm actually pretty convicted about the words that I use and the language that I have. And I was like, that's not where I would have started, Holy Spirit. However, if that's where we're starting, that's where we're starting. And so we talked about the power of the spoken word and why words matter, so on and so forth. And eventually, it was actually probably over a year later, there was a whole human here, but we talked about why that was a bad idea. And I realized, it was like, you can literally pick up the Bible and find that exact same scenario. Except it actually ended a little bit worse if you read the whole Bathsheba sitch. But it was very interesting to see how God convicts differently than we do. Because in this entire episode, Steve is cursing like a sailor, but he talks about how he's convicted about advocating for gambling. And now there are Christians out there who are fine with gambling, whether it is going to bingo or whether it is betting on fantasy football, getting a lottery ticket, but they're fine with it because they don't have an issue. It's the same thing with alcohol. Some people drink, some people don't drink. It depends on where they're convicted. It's our own individualized walk. And I love that God is active enough in Steve-O's life that he's showing him, hey, here's some place that you're walking that you might need to stop. And Steve-O went, oh, there's some place I'm walking that I might need to stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop walking that way. And you know what's gonna happen? Something else is gonna appear in his path, and something else is gonna appear in his path. And that is the process of sanctification. We don't have to all be perfect, holy, and mightier and holier than thou. Because we're not going to get there on this side of heaven. I always think of if this is us, and this is where we need to be in order to enter heaven. Jesus is covering about that much of it, and we've got about that much. That's about all we cover. And if we walk really well, we cover about that much. Okay, but this much still needs to be covered by Jesus. It doesn't matter how good we get here on earth. We're never going to be good enough to get there. However, that's such good news, because that means that we walk with him because we love him, not because we have to, because all of the rest, that entire delta, is made up by Jesus. And that's the good news. That's the good news, that we are loved so much in our very small percentage of our weight of salvation that we carry, and that he carries us the rest of the way. That's such good news. Because look, I've been walking with Jesus. I'm 46. I guess it's almost been 20 years. So I've been when I was 27. And so I think about my walk, and there's places I'm not any closer. There's places that I'm like, oh, you know what I should do? Probably not be dealing with the same stupid thing still, but I am. And so it is just miraculous to be able to get a front row seat to watch God move in another believer's life. And I'm so happy to see that Steve-O is now one of those people.